All right, let's jump right into today's deep dive. We're bringing you all the latest news from around the Faroe Islands. We've got everything from politics and local happenings to a look at the sports world and even today's weather.
Sounds like we've got a packed agenda.
Yeah, I think so. Why don't we start by looking at what's happening in the
Right.
world of Faroe's politics?
Sure, let's dive in. The Kringvarp Føroyar board, they're facing some scrutiny right now over how they handled Ivan Nicholson's departure.
Yeah, there's definitely been some tension there. The KVF staff, they even sent a letter to the minister voicing their concerns.
Right. They seem particularly worried about the lack of communication and the uncertainty over who will take the leadership role going forward.
And this all comes after that reported severance agreement with Nicholson. He'll actually be returning to KVF in his previous role.
Interesting. A lot going on over at KVF, it seems. Moving on, we're seeing a lot of discussion about the Føroyar tunnel-in proposal.
The subsea tunnel, right?
That's the one. We're seeing some very strong opinions on both sides of this.
That makes sense. It's a big project.
Definitely. One reader emphasized the tunnel's importance, urging everyone to focus on the benefits it could bring to the island.
But of course, not everyone agrees.
Right. Another reader actually called for a year's delay on the project. They want to make sure there's time for a thorough investigation before any decisions are made.
Makes sense. You want to be sure with a project of that scale.
Exactly. All right, shifting gears a bit now. It looks like the Ministry of Health and Social Affairs is working on ways to shorten those waiting lists in the healthcare system.
That's always good news.
It is. Their initiatives have already managed to reduce the wait list. They've got it down by 597 people so far this year.
Not bad. And on the topic of important matters, it seems like Parliament is addressing the issue of rising living costs.
Yeah, that's a hot topic everywhere these days.
Definitely. And it seems like one Parliament member brought up a question. They wanted to know if travel allowances for Parliament members would be reduced. They were pointing out that they hadn't seen any indication of that happening.
Makes sense to be asking those questions now, especially with everything going on.
For sure. And on a slightly more uplifting note, it looks like we have some film projects that are going to be getting some funding this year.
Yes. Minister Susie Stenberg has granted funding to 30 film projects.
All right, well, that about covers it for the political landscape. Let's switch gears a bit and see what's happening in other areas of local news. What's caught your eye?
Well, for one, there's a new book that's being released. It's called Urgamlum Ritum, which translates to From Old Writings. It's being published by NAM.
Sounds interesting. What's it about?
It focuses on Faroe's manuscripts all the way up to the 19th century.
Ah, so a bit of a historical deep dive.
Exactly. And it looks like we have an update on that construction project, the Trieja Husia Norduri Hagnum 1.
The third house north on Hagnum.
Right. Looks like things are moving forward as planned there.
Cool. What else is happening? Anything for our outdoorsy listeners?
Well, there's a brand new outdoor skate park being built in Gundadalur, Torshavn. And it's not just for skateboarding, it's also for scooter riding, BMX biking, and roller skating.
Wow, that's great. Something for everyone.
Yeah, it'll be great. It looks like there's a search underway for a new chief of police for Vágar.
Important role to fill.
It is. Oh, and speaking of news, the pedestrian bridge in Haven had another glass breakage incident last night.
Really? That's unfortunate. All right, on some lighter news.
Well, a young man from Santa Vágar, he'll be participating in Paradise Hotel.
Reality TV.
That's right. He's going to be on Paradise Hotel.
Very cool. Any other happenings?
It seems like Gerhard Lomberg is being celebrated today in Skopun.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we move on to the exciting world of sports now? What's happening on the football front?
Well, the Faroes men's national team, they're currently waiting to see who they'll be facing in the World Cup qualifying draw.
Makes sense. Got to wait for that draw.
Exactly. And Haller Hansen, he's a national team player. He's mentioned he's hoping for a match against England.
Now that would be exciting.
It would. And looking at local football, Matthias Johnson will be staying with football club B36.
Cool. What about their coaching situation?
Oh, right. Eliezer Olsen will be taking on the role of coach for B36.
All right. And how about handball? Anything exciting happening there?
Actually, yes. Håkon West Jacobsen and Johan Pauli Nicholson, they were both 100% effective in a recent handball match.
Wow. That's incredible.
It is. Very impressive.
For sure. All right. Well, let's wrap things up for this section with a quick look at the weather. What's been going on in the Faroe skies lately?
From what I've seen, the recent weather reports haven't been that great. Seems like we've been having some unfavorable conditions.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
And I imagine that could have a ripple effect on various industries, things like fishing and transportation.
Oh, absolutely. Even tourism and outdoor activities, those could be impacted too.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. So we've covered politics, community updates, and even a reality TV star. What's the overall feeling you get from today's news?
It's interesting. I'm sensing a theme of anticipation, a lot of waiting going on in many of these stories.
Oh, like what?
Well, the uncertainty at KVF, for one, and the debate about the Føroyar tunnel, that's still up in the air. Even the questions regarding cost-saving measures in Parliament.
Right, those are all big decisions.
Exactly. It feels like the Faroe Islands are at a bit of a crossroads with all these things.
That's an interesting way to put it, and it almost makes you think about the unpredictable weather we talked about.
Exactly. Who knows what's coming next?
Well, I guess that's what keeps things interesting. To our listener out there, I challenge you to think about this. Which of these stories do you think will have the biggest impact on the Faroe Islands in the long run?
It's definitely something to ponder.
It is. The Faroe Islands are constantly evolving, always something new happening. And I imagine that could have a ripple effect on various industries. Things like fishing and transportation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Even tourism and outdoor activities, those could be impacted too.
yeah. Definitely something to keep an eye on. So we've covered politics, community updates, and even a reality TV star. What's the overall feeling you get from today's news?
What stands out to me is how many of these stories have this sense of waiting. Like we're on the edge of something.
Well, I see what you mean. Like what?
Well, the uncertainty at KVF, for
Mhm.
one,
Mm.
and the debate about the Føroyar tunnel that's still ongoing, and even those questions in Parliament about cost-saving measures.
Right. It does feel like there's some big decisions that need to be made.
Exactly. It feels like the Faroe Islands are at a crossroads.
That's a really interesting observation. And it almost makes you think about that unpredictable weather we were just talking about, doesn't it?
Precisely. It really does.
Well, it certainly seems like there's never a dull moment in the Faroe Islands. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into all the latest news from the Faroe Islands.
My pleasure.
Until next time.